This is the Dallas Morning News.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of SportsDay Rangers. I'm John Blake in beautiful Arlington, Texas.
And I'm Evan Grant in New York, where we may have some rain as we record this.
This week the Rangers are on the road. They're facing two pretty good clubs. They came out of Detroit, losing 2 out of 3. They're currently in New York. And injuries have started to crop up. They were on the bullpen side early on. Now they're on the position player side as the club nears the end of this, what was a very difficult 40-game stretch to start the season.
Yeah, and we'll get into that. I want to mention that this week's guest is former Rangers reliever Jake Diekman, who spent parts of 4 seasons with the club, helping the Rangers to division titles in 2015 and 2016, and is now a high school coach at home in Nebraska.
Good story with Jake, obviously, and Evan will get into it. And on the archives in Arlington this week, we're going to look back at, as we celebrate 1996 and the 30th anniversary of that first Rangers postseason team. 2 days in May in Detroit in 1996, where something was accomplished that hadn't been done in the American League in almost 80 years.
Before we get into everything else, you know you can reach out to us on X with any Rangers questions or comments. I'm at Evan_P_Grant, and he is at Ranger Blake.
So before we talk about the team, a couple of things that we wanted to discuss. First, Evan got a very prestigious award last week. He was presented the Innovator of the Year award by the Dallas Morning News in their yearly awards for the newspaper. Evan, congratulations, first of all. And I was curious, what did you innovate?
Well, this is part of our innovation, John. The Rangers podcast was new last year. The hamburger trips around Texas were new. We added the YouTube streams. So we're just trying to reach people at wherever they want to consume their news. I haven't gone on to the TikTok yet, but who knows? That may be coming before it's all over and done with.
Well, hopefully you'll keep innovating for a long time. And then also this past week, and we'll get into this a little bit with Jake since he is a high school coach. You went out and visited Rusty Greer, and who is a high school baseball coach at Fort Worth Christian, having a great year. But he's got the #1 high school kid in the country in Grady Emerson, and which is incredible. But Rusty's background as a big league player, as you wrote in the story, is a huge asset for a kid like that.
Yeah, I think, listen, Grady was contacted by Matt Kemp over a year ago and invited to come hit with him up in Salina. And during that, the conversation kind of came up about, he was the top-ranked player in the country when he was 16. So he's had a lot of this. And the year leading into your draft can be a really pressure-filled year with constantly moving up and down prospect rankings, with having scouts wanting to talk to you all the time. And to hone your game, it's good to be around people who have played this game at the highest level. And I think that kind of put that thought into Grady's head, into his dad's head, Brandon. And they had a previous relationship with Rusty, who had conducted defensive camps for young kids. And they set up a meeting with Rusty, and it just seemed like the perfect fit. And listen, that staff over at Fort Worth Christian, they want to pay it forward for young kids, but it's a great facility over there. And it's not just Rusty. They've got Curtis Wilkerson, the former Ranger, on that.
Played 10 years in the big leagues. Yep.
So there's a lot of experience there. And I think that's been good for Jake and for Grady. And I think the most important thing from his father's perspective, and I think this shows up for scouts, because right now scouts aren't looking so much for the talent. They saw the talent in the elite summer showcases, and when he played for Team USA in Japan, they saw him against really elite players then, and when you're evaluating talent, that's important. But people want to see if he's a good teammate, if he's acting above players and all that other stuff. And I think, from the one time that I went out there, I saw a guy who was really invested in his teammates, was the first guy to congratulate guys, was picking up helmets from guys, was trying to give guys some insight into what pitchers were throwing and how balls were moving. So I saw a guy who was really invested, and I think to his father's point, this was the most fun year that Grady has had playing baseball since he was a little kid, and I think that was important, and I think that shows through. I don't expect Grady Emerson to go past the first 3 picks. I think Rock Chalowski or from UCLA will be the number 1 pick, and then I think it's very possible that Grady Emerson ends up as the number 2 pick overall.
Well, and Rusty, we've talked to Rusty before, and he's really enjoying this. This is right up Rusty's alley, and I could see where he would be a great coach for a kid like that.
He is very, very, I don't know what the right word is, diligent, dedicated. You can see that Rusty is he's got Johnny Oates's pensiveness as a coach. You can see that kind of come through when he's coaching the games. It's not like he's relaxed. It's not like he's just having fun. He is and it's not like he's overly intense or anything. He's just really focused on his team and the game.
Yeah.
Bottom of the 9th, bases loaded. Here comes Jimmy Dale from Baker Brothers Plumbing, AC, and Electrical.
Thanks, Chuck. When your home pitches curveballs, Baker Brothers knocks it out of the park.
Home run, Baker Brothers. Incredible.
As the official home service partner of your Texas Rangers, we're offering $300 off a tank or tankless water heater.
Another winning call. Visit callbakernow.com or dial 214-342-1171 today.
Baker Brothers.
Great service.
So let's talk a little bit about these Rangers that you're watching now in New York on this road trip. Last 3 team is injuries on the position player side now are starting to really kind of affect what was already a lineup that was struggling. But Wyatt Langford, it looks like, is going to be sidelined a little longer. Brandon Nimmo did not play Tuesday night, against the Yankees, and Josh Smith is now gone on the IL. So what varying degree of where are those guys at?
Well, I think that Wyatt's probably not going to be back before June 1st. There is this muscle strain kind of in the way it was described to me, the belly of his forearm. So that rules out the elbow or the flexor tendon kind of on the inside of the forearm, the meat of the forearm. But, the idea was we now need to take another 10 days to 14 days to let it fully rest and just recover. We don't need to go back and restart this early again to try and get back a couple days earlier. And so when you take 10 days or 14 days off, then you've got to restart your hitting progression.
Correct.
And you've probably got to take a few more rehab at bats when that's said and done. So you add another week to 10 days on top of that, you're talking the end of May or the 1st of June before you're back. So that is that situation. I think the Rangers are going to start looking more deeply into any ways they can prevent some of these if there's anything they can do to help prevent some of these soft tissues injuries that Wyatt has had in his first 3 years in the big leagues. As far as Josh Smith goes, I think this might be something that Josh was only going to need to miss 4, 5, maybe 6 days. But with Brandon Nimmo being a little bit banged up and not available necessarily every day, the Rangers can't afford to have 2 guys who are going to be off and on the bench. They need some continuity there. So it brings Justin Foscue into play. And listen, I think the situation here is this: the Rangers don't have a lot of depth, John. We've been over this before. They don't have a lot of depth in the minor leagues at this point in time. The one guy that they really, really would like to get to the big leagues is also hurt, and that's Cody Freeman. So this may be an opportunity for Justin to get a few at bats and show that he has made some progress in facing big league pitching, but it may be, very scarce play as well. And opportunities aren't always fair and just. He's going to have to make the most of what he's given here.
And facing tough pitching, Evan, a lineup now that is pretty much a makeshift lineup where you've got to play Andrew McCutcheon against right-handed pitching, which was never in the cards to start. Evan Carter on Tuesday night has to take a tough at bat against Hedrick for the Yankees. It just exacerbates what's already been a season-long situation in getting a struggling offense going, and the runners in scoring position, getting guys on base, not able to. Elmer Rodriguez was on fumes in that first inning last night, and the Rangers just couldn't put him away. And Yankees hit 3 home runs on Tuesday night, and it was a frustrating game, but it was kind of a microcosm of what you've seen all year.
Yeah, the Rangers teased a very sophisticated approach against Rodriguez in the first inning. They made him throw pitches. They were willing to take walks. He had 37 pitches, and the Yankees had bullpen help
Right.
up in the inning. And then he comes out and has a very efficient second inning. The Rangers needed to deal the death blow there, for lack of a better term, in the second inning. Ramp the pitch count up more. Even if you go out 1, 2, 3, make him work for every out. And they didn't do that. And so you look up, and in the 5th inning, he's got 2 outs in the 5th inning, and he's at 84 pitches. He should not have been pitching that deep into the game. And I don't know what happens with this offense. If they score runs, in an inning, they think it's going to be easy the rest of the way, or what the issue is. But I thought last night was the most disappointing and frustrating loss of the year. You go out in New York City, score 3 runs before the bottom of the first, have Jacob deGrom on the mound, have the opposing starter on fumes, and you give that lead up within the first 2 innings and lose that game by 3 runs. Just a disappointing loss all the way around.
And you've been around the team. Do you sense that on the offensive side, the players are pressing a little bit? I mean, I know it's hard to tell with Seager, who has obviously had a really tough start, but and he's a veteran player. But some of the young guys, this has got to be a tough situation.
Well, I mean, I don't mean to be sarcastic or anything here, but it's hard to tell for me because, I mean, this has been the norm for more than a year now. This offense is just not function. I do think that the things that the Rangers needed to have happen this year, or that they felt they needed to have happen, were that Josh Young and Jake Berger would take steps forward. Well, right. Josh really has. Yeah. And his strikeout to walk rate and really signifies an improved approach. Jake is tracking along with what he did last year, which is when he's not slugging, there's no offense whatsoever. There's no walks, although he did take a walk last night. There's no walks. There's no singles. And it just becomes an absolute zero. And this was the guy who started the season as your cleanup hitter. Last night he's hitting 6th, and the Rangers are just grasping about for ways to get guys in the middle of the order to produce runs.
Yeah, it's been tough, and like we said, and the bullpen, which has been unbelievable, maybe starting to show a few leaks here. I mean, but these guys have pitched a lot of innings, and it's a lot to put on a bullpen.
Yeah, Tyler Alexander gave up a home run last night that ended up charging 2 more runs to deGrom and made his line look worse than maybe it was. And they're going to have some rough outings. I think, again, the bullpen, by and large, when you factor in the ascent of Jake Latz into the closer's role and what he has done, and the performances of Gavin Collier and Peyton Gray, the bullpen has well outperformed expectations. The problem with this team, as we've said now for over a year, is the complete lack of offense, particularly in run-scoring situations. They had lots of guys on base last night. They went 3 for 13 with runners in scoring position, and only one of the 3 hits actually produced a run. You look at this team's numbers with the bases loaded. They had the bases loaded on 3 different occasions last night. The only run-producing at bat that came out of that was Jock Peterson's sacrifice fly. This team has a 379 OPS, as we talk about this on Wednesday morning, with the bases loaded, which is 29th in Major League Baseball. They have simply got to make more out of their run scoring chances.
And they're not. They've hit 4 home runs in the last 10 games as we record this. It doesn't appear there's going to be a lot of slug here. And the Yankees hit 3 home runs. They're able to do that, and the Rangers have faced a lot of teams lately that have that power aspect to their teams. So the Rangers, like you say, are going to have to just try to keep grinding it out there and trying to manufacture runs as part of this offense right now.
Yeah, and listen, I think the last thing that I want to say on any of this is the Rangers have done a remarkable job through the first 3 quarters of this 40-game stretch of doing what they needed to do. They have treaded water, and that's what they needed to do. But you can't do it for 75%. You've got to do it for the whole way, because one lousy week can really put you in a big hole here. And this has been 3 pretty cruddy days for the Rangers offense, and 3 cruddy results. And you still got, as we record this, 5 games left before you maybe get to take a breather after that Cubs series. The schedule does turn easier for the Rangers after this weekend, but you don't want to be looking up at the end of this week and be 6 games under 500.
And again, I think the league is helping them too. There's 2 teams in the league with 500 that are playing over 500 baseball. The AL West is, again, everybody has had their issues, and Rangers are still close. So we'll see what happens here as we go forward here, as we finally cross after this tough stretch with the Cubs over the weekend. But we are going to move on, and our guest this week is Jake Diekman, longtime left-handed relief specialist with 9 different teams, but with the Rangers for 4 seasons from 2015 to 18. He's now a high school baseball coach. He had a very heroic story coming back from a major surgery to regain his major league career, and we'll talk to Jake next. Our guest on this week's episode of Sports Day Rangers is Jake Diekman. Ranger fans will remember him as a very reliable and valuable piece of the Rangers bullpen during that run to the AL Western Division title in 15 and 16. Played 13 years in the big leagues, ended up with 9 different teams, a lot of that at the end of his career. 3.01 ERA and 764 strikeouts in 602 innings. And Jake pitched before the 3-batter minimum, so a lot of short outings facing lefties. With the Rangers, 3.18 ERA, 160 games, and again, great strikeout to innings pitch ratio, 140 Ks and 124 and a third innings. And now he retired after the 24 season. He is now the head baseball coach at Lincoln Christian High School in Nebraska. And Jake, welcome to our great podcast. I think you're going to win the prize for the best background that we've had with a guest this year.
I appreciate you guys having me. It's nice to see your guys' face. I'm in my wife's little sewing area, so it's very colorful over here.
Well, let's start with let's start with the coaching. So you basically, what propelled you to get into coaching? Basically a year after you came off the field, because you went to spring training in 25, and then you pitched a little bit for the Lincoln Salt Dogs in the American Association, and then here less than a year later, you're a high school baseball coach.
Yeah. The Salt Dogs thing was, I always wanted to do that. We live 8 miles away from the stadium, so they were amazing. I pitched in the first homestand, so the first 6 games that we had, I pitched in 4 of them, and then after that I retired, and just so all my friends and family could see me pitch one last time, and then so that happened, and then our oldest daughter goes to Lincoln Christian. And they had an opening, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm just going to do it. And then it started, and now our regular season's over, but I still love baseball. I still play catch with them every day. I'll throw against them probably I might throw against them today. But yeah, like I have such a joy to like be on the field where this is like a easy transition, not just to like retire and then figure something else out. I'm still like in the game. So it's been really, really nice to do.
Did you have, Jake, when you retired, and I mean, obviously the thing to go back home and pitch in front of friends and family, that's really cool. It's a great way to say goodbye. But did you have any thoughts like late in your career, hey, I want to stay around the game in some kind of role, whether as an instructor or a coach or something like that? Or was this really just a spur of the moment thing because you missed being around the game after 6 months?
I'd say it's probably like a little bit of both. I mean, I love baseball. It's literally what I've done basically my whole life. But also, like, I love when a pitcher, like, if I give a little bit of instruction and he like feels what I'm telling him to do and then it like clicks for him, like that feeling is like euphoric. Like that's what you're chasing as like a pitcher or a coach, or like even like you, if you like write a really good headline and like you come up with it, like that feeling, it's just like you're like, you chase it and chase it and chase it. So,
It's funny that you mentioned this because I just spent time with Rusty Greer, the former Ranger, who is now coaching at Fort Worth Christian and has the best high school player in the country in Grady Emerson. And I asked Rusty the same thing, like, why did you decide you wanted to go to the high school level and coach? And he said exactly what you said, that there is this level of fulfillment of passing something along to somebody and watching them get it. And seeing how that kind of plays out for them. It's the epitome, right, of paying it forward in this game.
yeah, like because our JV season is over now, but watching them from the first game to the last game, the growth that they have had like over, say, 16, 17 games, it's like really, really impressive to watch. We were like watching the last game and we're like, these kids have developed so much over this like 6-week span.
So you grew up in Nebraska, so you played there. So you know the challenges of the weather playing high school baseball. You guys have played 19 games. I mean, Texas, these teams have played twice as many games.
Yeah.
How do you overcome that early in the season?
We've only had one game canceled, which is good. We've played games where it's 45. We've played games where it's 90. We've like, the weather is very fickle right now, I'd say. When it's really, really nice and 85, like today's going to be 80. This is fake weather. It's still going to get back down to like 55. But yeah, the next 2 days, it's good weather. We haven't really had a rain out yet, so that's good. I told him the worst part about tarping the field is putting it on and taking it off. Other than that, like you're good. But yeah, thankfully no real weather like delay at all so far. But I mean, it's always windy. Our field's on top of a hill, so it's always like 15 degrees colder.
It's a different high school game that kids play in Texas. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
Jake, my enduring memory of you is always going to be because we share the commonality of dealing with ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, and you were able to tell me your story as you were coming back from really radical surgery in 2017. But the other thing that just stood out is I sat with you through a couple of visits with kids who were dealing with that, and the amount of time and effort that you put into that. I could see how that would kind of, be a parallel for coaching, right? Because you knew what those kids went through.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're still doing that up in Nebraska with UC patients. What do you try and convey to kids who are dealing with UC and the challenges they face?
When we did it when I was playing, the hardest part is getting them to talk. So like once I got them to talk, that was like the easiest thing ever. I would always start with like, because they're super quiet until like you have to break the ice. So I would ask them like, what video games do you like? Like something that they can relate to. And then once that happened, it was like a waterfall of questions. But more or less just know like, one, I truly feel like the doctor's trying to make you feel better. So if he prescribes you something, or if he tells you to like stay away from a certain food, or any recommendation that he has, his job is to try to make you feel better. You need to be super open with your parents. Like I wasn't. I would feel terrible and like skip a week taking pills, and then 2 weeks later I feel terrible and I wonder, oh, why am I like, so just, you have to be, I know it's like a iffy subject, especially for a younger kid to like talk about, but as long as you're transparent with your parents and your doctor, I feel like, and your friends, like if you're worried about a friend making fun of you about it, I don't know, like if they're truly a friend, they should somewhat have compassion and grace and like, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the biggest problem for kids is, one, you don't like the idea of feeling sick, number one.
Mhm.
And two, it's a hard thing to discuss with people because it can be embarrassing, right? Or it can feel embarrassing for a young kid. And so the grace that you conducted yourself with those kids, and I saw those instances where you know, you didn't just show up to like sign a few autographs or say hello. You sat down and talked directly to them. And you did see those kids open up, and you did see this kind of like avalanche of questions start to come at you. And it was really impressive to watch.
The other thing, Evan, is the transparency that Jake had while he was going through that to help the kids. That was a tough year, 2017, but just kind of his journey and how he shared it and everything. That was so impressive.
Well, I appreciate that.
How are you doing on that right now, Jake? How is everything?
I do great. I feel great. Yeah.
Fully
Thank
healthy?
God, because those like 6 months with the bag, I was like, oh no. But no matter
Came
what,
back and
like,
pitched.
yeah, but no matter what, I still would have pitched. That was like, once I had the bag for like, I'd say like 2 months, and I was able to like throw, and we got to spring training and all that. Once I was like playing catch with it, I was like, no matter what, I'll still pitch. So at that point, it was just like looking at the calendar and like knowing when the next one was. And then, okay, the next one is in whenever. Like it sort of like gave me a finish line.
And listen, for people who don't recall this, right? I'm trying to work back to the story, but basically Jake you had your colon removed, and basically rebuilt. And it was pretty radical surgery at the time. And you missed a full year basically.
Pitched in 11 games that they came back and miraculously pitched at the end of 17. It's amazing.
And then went on to pitch 6 more years in the big leagues.
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
somehow I tricked him. I don't know.
I wanted to ask you one thing. The Rangers bullpen, I think, is overperforming at this point in time. And I wanted to ask you something just about the fickleness of how bullpens kind of come together. What is essential to make a good bullpen out of like quote unquote lesser pieces? Like you don't have a defined closer. You don't have this guy. You don't have that guy. How can those groups kind of come together and really perform well?
There's like a huge aspect to that, I feel like. One, I mean, they're down there for 3 hours with only themselves. Like, if you truly like each other and like be around each other, you're all like rooting for one another. And if I'd say, honestly, it's really weird when bullpens go good, everyone's like on a heater. They're all like so hot at that moment where all 7, 8 guys down there feel like they could pitch whenever they want. And it's just like picking each other up. I feel like I've been pulled from games with the bases loaded. I've came in with the bases loaded. Like you have to like, it's okay to give up 1 run in that situation. Don't like let it snowball.
Yeah.
it's just a lot of experience. You're going to have a really bad 2 week. You're going to have a really good month. Like, there's times where you're going to make a really good pitch and it's going to get hit out. And then you're going to make a really horrible pitch right down the middle and you're going to get a double play. Like, it's very hard when you're in it to zoom out. So if you're in a 3-game series and you pitch on Friday and you stunk and gave it up, Saturday, you're not going to wake up feeling the best.
Right.
Like, it's going to be somewhat in the back of your head.
Yeah.
But if you can zoom out and realize, like, in a 2-week span, I had 5 appearances and they were all hot garbage. But then the month before that, you were amazing. So, like, yeah, that's just, it's,
and that
it's really
2015, and that 2015 team, Jake was, we trade for Cole Hamels, obviously the huge piece of that deal. Jake was kind of we got Jake Diekman too with Cole Hamels. And that bullpen, Evan, if you remember, and Jake too, you had Keone Kella, you had Sam Dyson, you had Sean Tollison, who had a really good year in 15, but it was an interesting collection of guys, and you pitched great. You guys pitched great the last 2 months of the season, and we came back and won the division.
Yeah, I was like the bag of balls thrown in for that trade. But then, like, I remember, like, I forget, I think we got to the field in, like, the 2nd inning. And then I pitched in, like, the 7th or something, or, like, I pitched right away. But then I think we were back. The Astros had a lead for, like, I don't even know.
We were way behind.
8 games, pretty far.
We were way behind.
And then we caught them, like, the last series of the year.
Yep. We beat the Angels the last day of the season on Cole's complete game.
Yeah, Cole threw a complete game. But, like, he had to, because I think at the end of that season, the bullpen was so worn down because we pitched, like, every game.
Well, the day before, it was a little rough, but that Saturday against the Angels.
Yeah. But that's just, I mean, that's what I tell Lincoln Christian, like, the boys now. There's going to be a day where you get blown out, and then there's going to be a day where you blow people out. Like, sometimes that's just baseball. You could play really good and, like, not make an error and also lose. Or you could make 10 errors and somehow win the game. Like, it's just really fickle. But that year was pretty crazy because we just kept winning series and series and series. And then all of a sudden, every series against the Astros, it felt like we won 2 out of 3 or swept them. So, like, it turned really quick.
That comeback in the second half was truly amazing. And you weren't there early in the season, obviously, but had a new manager. The club had come off of a 95 loss season, which had been really, really disappointing given that they had 4 straight 90-win seasons. And so I think that club, it was a little bit unexpected how this club came along. And listen, I think you're both underselling it. Yes, Cole was certainly the most attractive starting pitcher on the market, and of course he had to pitch a no-hitter in the outing before he came.
Yeah, that was
I had been
crazy.
told by multiple people in the week leading up that the Rangers definitely wanted Jake Diekman, a left-hander who absolutely dealt against lefties. And so let's not say you were a bag of balls. You
Okay.
You were an actual live body in that trade.
I was a bag of balls and a rosin bag.
Yeah. So last thing for me is when you're coaching now, right? And you're actually coaching the game as opposed to sitting out in the bullpen and waiting for 6 innings before you start to get loose or whatever. How fast is the game moving for you?
Very slow. Very slow. I mean, the game it's not as fast paced. Like, the game is just so slow. But my mind never shuts off. All I think about is literally coaching. My wife hates it. I'll come home and I'll be like, we should have done this. We should have done this. Like in game to sit. It's also like not like minor league. It's not like college. It's not like, so like in game decisions are super easy because I was in the bullpen. So in the 4th inning, I can look at the lineup and be like, oh, in the 7th inning, I might have like this, like 4 hitters. So I might have to get ready. Like that's how I'm planning, like literally the whole game. So I'm like, okay, if we can keep this guy under 70 pitches, then he can come back in 3 days or 4 days. I'll bring this guy in because he has the most rest, and we can keep him under 50, and then he can pitch on Monday. Or like, I'm thinking about that so fast where like, once I got like the rules and like pitch count and like rest days and all that stuff under control, I feel like the decision making like during the game is just so easy. Not easy, like there's still like stuff I could change, but I'm not like, it's not like ruining how, it's not speeding up the game at all.
Okay.
Last one for me, too. And this goes back to looking, you pitched 705 games in the majors, 602 innings. Before the 3-batter minimum, you were a left-handed specialist. Would you like to be pitching today? Do you like the 3-batter minimum?
I do like the 3-batter minimum. It keeps like the flow of the game going. Like early in my career, it would be like, okay, we're playing Miami. Say somebody faces like Hayward, Brian McCann, or like I would go in and face Hayward and get pulled, and then like, or I'd face Chipper because they wanted to bat right-handed, and then I'm out. So like I feel like that's more detrimental to a person's arm, because the time of you warming up is way later. They'll call like the hitter before and be like, get him up. He's had this hitter. So like the spike of adrenaline and cool down. And then the next day you're probably going to have to do it again. Like the 3-batter rule, I love it.
And I imagine for pitchers, yeah, there were a lot of lefties who hung on very late during the last period because they could get one batter out. But I don't think that anybody, I think given the opportunity, pitchers would rather face a stretch of hitters than get ready for one batter and that's it. You want to feel like you participated in the game.
Yeah. If you ask any reliever, if you say you could face one hitter or face 27, they're going to say 27. Like most of them are so ultra competitive where like if I ever got the bases loaded, I never wanted to get pulled. Like if I made that like mess, I somehow want to get out of it, or I want to give it all up myself.
You want the responsibility or the credit one way or another, right?
Yeah, I want to be the bug or the windshield.
Well, this has been great, Jake. We really appreciate you visiting with us. It's at some point in time, we're going to have to do like a show with all the former Rangers who are now high school coaches, because Mitch Moreland's coaching a team in Mississippi, or Alabama, I should say. Rusty is in Fort Worth. You're in Lincoln. Chris Davis is coaching up in Argyle. So it's
Nice.
it's a regular reunion of Rangers that more and more guys are just getting into it. And I love the idea that for you guys, it's like actually paying the game back a little bit.
Yeah, I love it. Well, because like it was such baseball was, I mean, it gave me everything in my life, basically. But like I still thoroughly enjoy it. Like I was taking fly balls in center field yesterday, trying to throw to third. Like I'm like a little kid out there still.
Well, we appreciate it, and good luck in the district playoffs here, and we'll talk to you soon, and thanks for the background to give our podcast a little artistic upgrade.
Hey, appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
That was a great conversation with Jake Diekman. He, Evan, you got to be really close to him as he was going through the illness with the colitis in 2017. But really good insights. I can see where he'd make a great high school baseball coach.
Yeah, he's really invested in young kids, and he still does love the game. So I think this is a great fit for Jake, and I love just seeing this, as we talked about in that in that interview, the number of former Rangers who are now coaching high school kids and actually giving something back to the game at a level where it really can make a difference.
So let's look at the archives in Arlington, and all this year, from time to time on the podcast, we'll be looking back at the 1996 season, 30th anniversary of the Rangers' first trip to the postseason. And there were 2 days in May in Detroit, where the Rangers had just come from in 1996, where the Rangers accomplished something that hadn't been done in the American League since 1917, and it was pitching, which very unusual for the Rangers in that period, where it was mostly an offensive show. But Ken Hill and Roger Pavlik pitched consecutive one-hitters. May 3rd, Ken Hill allowed a infield single to Bobby Higginson with 1 out in the first, and then retired the last 26 hitters to win the game 11-0. Fan 7 did not walk a batter. I remember about that game, Mark McLemore was hurt. Kurt Stillwell came in, and again, Rangers didn't use their bench much in 96, but Stillwell had 3 hits in that game. I think Gonzalez had a home run, which wasn't that unusual for the time. And then the following day, and this was at Old Tiger Stadium, I should say, Roger Pavlik retired the first 14 batters in the game. Mark Lewis hit a solo homers with 2 outs in the 5th. That was the last batter to reach against Pavlik. They win the game 3-1. Again, no walks, 7 strikeouts. Pavlik 114 pitches, Hill 100 pitches, So over 2 games, they each faced just 28 batters, 2 hits and 18 total innings, no walks and 14 Ks. And the last piece of this historically, that was the first time, as I mentioned, in 79 years in the American League that had been accomplished. Evan probably doesn't remember this, but the old Washington Senators in 1917, Walter Johnson and Doc Ayers pitched one-hitters back-to-back. It's been done in the National League several times since 1996, but it just showed on that team. Ken Hill was 16-10, pitched 250 innings. Pavlik was 15-8. 201 innings, and that team was known for offense, Evan, but the pitching, they had starters that went out there and gave them 7+ innings every night.
They had reliable starters, and that was what made the difference for that team. I'll just tell you that my very quick 96 memory associated with that time is this. May 11th of 1996, I was covering the Marlins. The day began tragically with a plane crash in the Everglades. I believe that was AirTran's predecessor. Rotten day in South Florida. Go to the ballpark, and that night, Al Leiter pitches a no-hitter.
Wow.
Over the Colorado Rockies. And I was reminded about this on Sunday night. I didn't go to Detroit, and Gina and I were at a thing that you and I have been to before, the great cause that is Cafe Momentum's Sunday Supper Series. And Rhett Miller was playing, but I'm following the game along on my phone, and I see that Jack Leiter has a no-hitter going into the 5th inning, and I have sworn that if Jack Leiter is to throw a no-hitter, I am going to cover that game, because I want to say that I covered a father-son no-hitter. Wow. But I talked to Al about that last night. We saw him at the stadium, and hopefully that Jack's got the stuff to do that and make it a father-son combo, and hopefully we'll see that at some point in time.
So the last thing on the podcast, this past week, two individuals that you grew up with, as part of the Braves fandom, John Sterling, who passed away on Monday morning, and then Ted Turner, who passed away on Wednesday. Both, I think, were 87 years old. What do you remember about those 2 guys when you were following the Braves growing up?
I mean, Ted Turner made a miserable franchise into a national phenomenon by putting them on the Superstation, broadcasting it across cable all across the country, and it revived the Braves in a lot of ways. he was in the 70s. He was loud and brash and
Managed the team one night,
managed
took
the
Dave
team one
Bristol's
night
job. Yep.
in Pittsburgh and was told never to do that again. In the middle of a very long losing streak for the team. But you look at what Ted Turner did over his career by revolutionizing the cable industry and really revolutionizing how sports was distributed, and just an amazing life, an amazing character. And I'll just on Sterling, when John came to Atlanta, he did the Braves for a little bit, but he did the Hawks. He was the voice of the Hawks, and he was the voice of the Hawks during the rise of, my all-time favorite pro athlete from being a kid probably was Dominique Wilkins, and what Dominique brought to the floor. And long before it is high, it is far, it is gone, there was Dominique Magnifique, and I always reminded John of that when I saw him at the ballpark. He also hosted a talk show in Atlanta for a while, and my friends used to take turns calling in and tormenting him with just made-up questions, to the point where one time John said, and I've relayed this story to John too. John's response was, after somebody suggested that the Falcons should get George Blanda, who at that point in time was in his late 50s, to come in and kick. John said, "You know what? I think when you were young, and not just young, but terribly young, your mother was holding you in your lap, and the phone rang and the doorbell rang at the same time, and she didn't know what to do, and she got up and she dropped you on your head," and then he hung up. And so that was always an enduring story for me with John Sterling. Look, he made broadcasting fun. He also was a character. To see some of the tributes here in New York from people, John was just a warm guy who had time for just about everybody. And we were all sad when he stepped away, but I think we knew it was time. And just two guys who, were really important in making sports fun in Atlanta for a long period of time.
Yeah, and John, obviously, there aren't as many of those broadcasters around anymore. Rangers are lucky; they have Eric Nadel, who can, and the institutional knowledge those broadcasters have been doing for so long. To me, it's just part of the. I used to love to go in and see John whenever he was here, when I was in New York. So, with that, we will thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Sports Day Rangers, and thanks very much to Jake Diekman for visiting with us today.
Remember, guys, you can read my Grady Emerson, Rusty Greer story online right now. There will be the Sports Day Insider podcast this week was a roundtable with Tim Cowlishaw, talking about everything under the sun in Dallas, and also a big segment between Sean McFarland and me on Rangers. And we will keep you posted on what's going on with this team. Hopefully at some point in time here in the near future, we'll actually be able to write about an offensive outburst.
So, Evan, we'll see when we get back. Keep influencing up there in the Big Apple, and we'll talk to you all next week.